shouldn't have let her say it. That's the truth. The moment Lisa whispered, "We need to share body heat," something inside me cracked. Not from the cold, from the years I'd spent pretending I didn't love her. The wind outside howled like it wanted the cabin torn apart. Snow slammed against the window so hard the glass shook in its frame. The generator was dead. The lights flickered like they were thinking about giving up. And we were alone, completely cut off. I tried to act calm, tried to be the capable guy she'd asked to help close up the mountain cabin. But my hands were already numb, and not just from the temperature. Lisa stood a few feet away from me, hugging herself, her breath fogging in the air. She didn't look like my best friend's mom in that moment. She looked scared, and that scared me more than the storm. 3 hours earlier, we'd been laughing in the truck. She'd teased me about still living in our small Colorado town. "I thought you'd run off to Denver by now," she'd said. I almost told her the truth then, that I stayed because of her, because even catching a glimpse of her at the grocery store once, a week felt like oxygen. But I didn't. I never do. Now part of the roof had collapsed. Snow was pushing in through the ceiling. The temperature inside was dropping fast. My phone had no signal. The pipes were already frozen. And she was looking at me like I was the only thing standing between her and disaster. "Jake," she said softly, stepping closer. "We can't sit apart. We'll lose heat too fast." Her shoulder brushed mine. Even through layers of jackets, I felt it. My heart betrayed me, hard, fast. "This is just survival," she added quickly, not meeting my eyes. I nodded. But when she turned her back to me and let me wrap my arms around her waist under the blankets, survival wasn't the only thing burning between us. And I knew, if we made it through the night, nothing would ever be the same again. I told myself not to feel it. Not the way her back fit against my chest. Not the way her fingers clutched mine like she was afraid I'd disappear. This was survival. That's what I kept repeating in my head. But survival doesn't explain why my pulse wouldn't slow down. The wind roared outside, rattling the walls. The cabin groaned like it was alive and in pain. Snow kept slipping through the broken section of roof in the main room. Every few seconds, something thudded against the porch. Lisa shivered harder. "You're shaking," I murmured near her ear. "So are you," she whispered back. Her voice wasn't steady. Neither was mine. I tightened my arms around her. "Careful, respectful, but there's no respectful. Way to hold a woman you've secretly loved for almost 20 years. Her hair brushed my chin, lavender, soft. "God, I'm sorry you got dragged into this," she said suddenly. "I chose to come," I answered. "For you." I didn't say the last part. Silence stretched between us, thick, heavy. "Matt trusts you," she added quietly. That one landed hard. Guilt slid into the space between my ribs. Matt wasn't just my best friend. He was my brother in every way that mattered. We'd grown up together, shared secrets, fights, dreams, and now I was holding his mother in the dark. Too close. "I would never hurt him," I said quickly. She shifted slightly in my arms, turning just enough that her face was inches from mine. The candlelight flickered across her features. She looked younger like this. Not someone's mom, just a woman. "I know you wouldn't," she said softly. Her eyes searched mine, like she was looking for something, or maybe asking for permission. A loud crack echoed from outside, followed by a heavy crash that shook the cabin. Lisa gasped and grabbed onto me. "Was that the roof?" she breathed. I didn't answer right away, because I wasn't sure, and for the first time since the storm started, I realized something terrifying. It wasn't just the cold that could ruin us tonight. It was how badly I wanted her to turn around and kiss me. The crash wasn't the roof. It was worse. The entire cabin trembled like something massive had slammed into it. Snow poured through the damaged ceiling in the main room. A cold gust swept down the hallway, stealing what little warmth we had left. Lisa pulled away from me just enough to look toward the bedroom door. "We can't stay here if that section caves in," she whispered. Fear flashed across her face. Real fear. Not the polite, controlled kind I'd always seen her carry as a counselor, as a mother. This was raw. "I'll check it," I said. She grabbed my wrist instantly. "Don't." Her fingers were icy, but her grip was strong. For a second, we just stared at each other. My instinct was to protect her. Hers was to keep me close. That realization hit deeper than the cold. "I'm not losing you in that storm," she said quietly. "Losing me." The words settled between us. Something shifted. I moved slowly into the main room, keeping her hand in mine. The candles flickered violently. Snow had piled up under the broken section of roof, but the structure itself was still holding. "For now," I muttered. "For now," she echoed. We retreated back to the bedroom. The air was colder than before. My fingers were stiff. My jaw was starting to ache from clenching. Lisa sat on the edge of the narrow bed, rubbing her arms. I hate this, she admitted. The storm? No, the waiting. I understood that. Waiting for the next crack. Waiting for the temperature to drop lower. Waiting to see if we'd make it to morning. I sat beside her, close, too close. You're not alone, I said softly. She turned to face me fully this time. No hesitation, no blanket barrier. Jake, she whispered, searching my eyes. If something happens tonight, if we don't wake up, her voice faltered. My chest tightened. She wasn't just afraid of freezing. She was afraid of dying with things unsaid. And suddenly I realized, so was I. I don't want to die with regrets. She said it so quietly I almost missed it. But I felt it, every word. The candle between us flickered, throwing shadows across her face. The storm outside had grown quieter, but that somehow made it worse. Like the world was holding its breath. What regrets? I asked, even though I already knew. Lisa looked down at her hands. I've spent my whole life being responsible, she said. The good wife. The good mom. The counselor who gives perfect advice. Her voice cracked slightly. I don't even remember the last time I did something just because I wanted to. There it was, vulnerability. Not the strong, put-together Lisa everyone knew. Just a woman, cold, tired, honest. I swallowed. And what do you want, I asked. She lifted her eyes to mine, and for the first time in my life she didn't look at me like I was Matt's friend. She looked at me like I was a man. You, she said. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was simple, and it shattered me. The room felt smaller, the air thinner. My heart slammed so hard I thought it might actually hurt. You don't mean that, I said automatically. Because wanting me was dangerous. She gave a soft, almost sad smile. I've been fighting it for years, Jake. Years. I felt dizzy. I told myself it was just pride. That you turned out well and I was proud of you. But pride doesn't make you notice the way someone laughs, or the way they stand in a room. She reached out slowly. Her fingers brushed my jaw. Pride doesn't make your stomach flip when they look at you a certain way. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't just a storm confession. This wasn't panic. This was history. You're Matt's mom, I whispered, like saying it could fix everything. Her hand dropped. I know, she said. And in that moment, the guilt came rushing back in like freezing air through a crack in the wall. Because I wanted her. But loving her might cost me my best friend. I should have stepped back. That would have been the decent thing to do. The loyal thing. Instead, I leaned closer. Not enough to touch her lips. Just enough to feel her breath mix with mine. You don't get to say that and expect me to ignore it, I said, my voice low, shaking in a way I hated. Lisa's eyes searched mine. Like she was trying to measure how much damage we were about to cause. I'm not trying to ruin anything, she whispered. I'm tired of pretending I don't feel it. The word feel lingered between us. Heavy. Dangerous. The wind outside picked up again, rattling the cabin like a warning. Snow slid from the broken roof with a dull thud. The cold crept closer. But the space between us felt warmer. Too warm. I've loved you since I was 16, I said before I could stop myself. The confession left my mouth like something that had been locked up for years. Her lips parted slightly. 16? She repeated, almost stunned. I tried not to. God, I tried. I dated other women. I left town for college. I told myself it was just a stupid crush. And it wasn't, she said softly. No. Silence fell again. Not awkward. Not forced. Just full. You're not that kid anymore, she murmured. You haven't been for a long time. Her hand slid slowly up my arm, stopping at my shoulder. That simple touch sent heat straight through me. My body reacted before my brain could catch up. And that scared me, because this wasn't some fantasy anymore. This was real. I don't want to hurt Matt, she said suddenly, pulling her hand back like she'd touched fire. The warmth shifted instantly to tension. Neither of us spoke for a few seconds. Then I said the one thing that made her eyes darken with something deeper than fear. He doesn't own your heart. The words hung in the cold air, and for the first time that night. She didn't look guilty. She looked tempted. Tempted. That was the exact word. I saw it in her eyes. Not recklessness, not desperation, choice. And that terrified me more than the storm ever could. Jake, she breathed, like she was standing at the edge of something. I could feel it too, that invisible line between what was safe and what would change everything. The cabin creaked again, but neither of us moved. I don't want this to be about almost dying, she said quietly. I don't want it to be adrenaline or fear. It's not, I answered instantly, because it wasn't. This feeling had survived. Years, birthdays, holidays, watching her date other men, watching myself pretend I didn't care. This wasn't sudden. It was buried. And now it was breathing. She studied my face like she was looking for doubt. "You're 35, she said slowly. "You could have anyone." "I don't want anyone." The words came out rough, honest. Her composure cracked a little at that. She reached up again, but this time she didn't hesitate. Her palm rested against my chest, right over my heart. It was racing. For her. "You don't make this easy," she whispered. "I don't want to make it easy. I wanted it real." Outside, the wind finally began to soften. The violent rattling turned into a low hum. The worst of the storm might have been passing. But inside that tiny bedroom, the tension only grew stronger. She leaned forward slightly, not enough to kiss me, just enough to test the distance. "If we cross this line," she said, her voice barely audible, "there's no pretending tomorrow." That was the twist. Tomorrow, not death, not survival, consequences. And for the first time that night, I realized I wasn't afraid of freezing. I was afraid she'd wake up in the morning and decide I wasn't worth the fallout. "I'm not afraid of tomorrow," I said. That was a lie. I was terrified. Terrified of Matt's face if he ever found out. Terrified of losing the one person who'd been my brother since second grade. Terrified that this would end before it ever truly began. But I was more terrified of watching her pull away again. Lisa searched my eyes like she could see every doubt I was trying to hide. "You should be afraid," she whispered. "I am." Her honesty didn't push me back. It pulled me closer. The candle flame shrank lower, softer now, like it was giving us privacy. The wind outside had settled into a distant howl instead of a scream. "I've spent years telling myself you were off limits," she said. "That what I felt was inappropriate, selfish." "Is it?" I asked. Her lips parted, but no answer came. Instead, she reached up and touched my cheek again. Slower this time, intentional. My breath caught. This wasn't survival anymore. This was decision. "You're not a boy," she said quietly. "You haven't been for a long time. I never felt like one when I looked at you." That made her inhale sharply. I saw it, the shift, the guilt loosening its grip, the fear still there but smaller now. She moved closer. Our foreheads touched. No rush, no desperation, just warmth. "I don't want to sneak," she murmured. "I don't want to feel ashamed." "Then don't," I said softly. Her eyes fluttered closed for a second like she was bracing herself. "For once," she whispered, "I want to choose what makes me feel alive." That word hit me hard. Alive. Not safe, not responsible, not practical. Alive. And then she kissed me. Slow. Careful. Like she was testing whether the world would collapse around us. It didn't. But something inside me did. Because the second her lips moved against mine, I realized, if this ended tomorrow, I would never be the same again. Her kiss wasn't desperate. It was careful, like she was asking a question instead of making a mistake. I answered without thinking. My hand slid to her waist, pulling her closer under the blankets. The cold air in the room didn't matter anymore. All I felt was the warmth of her mouth, the softness of her breath against mine. For years I had imagined this. But imagination doesn't prepare you for reality. Reality was slower, deeper. Her fingers curled into my shirt like she was afraid I might disappear. When we finally pulled back, her forehead stayed pressed against mine. "We can still stop," she whispered. That was the uncertainty. The exit door. The last safe moment. "I don't want to stop," I said. But even as I said it, doubt flickered through me. Not about her. Never about her. About Matt. About what this would cost. She saw it in my eyes. "I won't make you choose," she said quietly. "If this hurts him, I'll carry that." "Not you." That shook me. "I'm not hiding behind you," I answered. "If we do this, we both stand in it." The weight of that settled between us. Outside, the storm had almost completely died. The cabin no longer shook. Only the soft drip of melting snow echoed somewhere in the main room. It felt like the world was giving us permission, or testing us. She traced her thumb along my jaw slowly, thoughtfully. "You've loved me since you were 16, she said, almost to herself. And I pretended not to notice. "You noticed?" She gave a small, knowing smile. "I notice everything, Jake." That changed something, because this wasn't one-sided longing. This wasn't fantasy. This had been building for both of us. She leaned in again, but this time the kiss wasn't hesitant. It was chosen. And as my heart pounded against hers, one terrifying thought slipped into my mind. What if surviving this storm was the easy part? Morning didn't feel like relief. It felt like judgment. Gray light slipped through the cracks around the bedroom door. The wind had stopped completely. No more shaking walls. No more howling. Just silence. Lisa was still curled against me, her hand resting over my heart like she'd claimed it in her sleep. For a moment I let myself pretend this was normal. Pretend she wasn't my best friend's mom. Pretend the world outside that cabin didn't exist. But reality always finds its way in. She stirred softly, blinking awake. For a second, she looked confused. Then she remembered. I saw it in her eyes. Not regret. Not exactly. But wait. Are we alive? She murmured. Yeah, I said gently. We made it. A small smile touched her lips. It faded quickly. And now? She asked. That question hit harder than any falling tree branch. Now. Now we deal with Matt. Now we deal with the town. Now we deal with the looks, the whispers, the betrayal he might feel. I brushed a strand of hair from her face. Last night wasn't panic, I said quietly. It wasn't fear. It wasn't just body heat. She held my gaze, searching for weakness. There's no going back for me, I added. That was my truth. She inhaled slowly. I don't want to hide, she said. But I don't want to lose my son. There it was, the impossible line. Love on one side, family on the other. The sound of distant engines broke through the stillness. Snowmobiles. Rescue. Reality speeding toward us. Lisa closed her eyes for a brief second. When they get here, she whispered, everything changes. I tightened my hold on her just a little. Maybe, I said. But deep down I knew. The storm outside was over. The real one was about to begin. The engines grew louder, closer. Each second felt like a countdown. Lisa slowly pulled away from me. The warmth between us replaced by cold morning air and even colder reality. We have to be careful, she said softly. Not distant, not ashamed, just aware. I sat up on the edge of the narrow bed, running a hand through my hair. For the first time since the storm started, I felt exposed. Not physically, emotionally. They're going to assume nothing happened, she continued. Two adults trapped in a storm. That's all they'll see. But that's not all it was, I said. She looked at me, and this time there was no hesitation in her eyes. No, she agreed. It wasn't. That mattered more than anything. Voices called out from outside the cabin. Hello, anyone inside? Rescue had arrived. Lisa stood, wrapping the blanket around her shoulders. She looked strong again, composed. The woman the world recognized. But when she turned back to me, her expression softened. Last night wasn't a mistake, she said quietly. But it's not something we rush either. I stood up, stepping closer. So what is it? She hesitated, not because she didn't feel it, because she did. It's real, she said finally. And real things deserve honesty. Honesty, with Matt, with ourselves, with the fallout that might come. The knock on the door came hard and urgent. Hold on, I called out. Lisa reached for my hand one last time before we walked out of the bedroom. Her finger squeezed mine. Not desperate, not secretive. Promise. For now, she whispered, we survived the aftermath. I nodded, because surviving the blizzard was easy. Loving her in the daylight, that was going to take courage. And as I opened the cabin door to the blinding white snow and the waiting world, I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't the end of our story. It was the beginning of the hardest chapter yet.